It's a huge honor to be closing the first day, and I think I got a double honor because I'm doing two things with you. So we're gonna start with this talk, and then we're gonna have a discussion about sustainable open source. So let's get. Am I all set? All right, it works. Right, just seeing a bunch of people coming in, but I'm gonna be starting. Yeah, super nice to see so many familiar faces. Thank you all for coming. All right, let's begin. So, welcome to the evolution of real-time, AnyCable Pro, and a little bit about my own. So, when we think about real-time, we think about web technology, right? So it all began years ago, of course, Java. If anybody remembers Flash, you just dated yourself, guys. But of course, there was some technologies, and then at some point around 2015, or around 2011, something started happening here. You can call it Cambrian explosion of different products, different technologies. And this is happening, of course, and even accelerating to this day. So what happened in 2011? So, at some point, I asked people on my Twitter if they recognize this logo. Now, I want to try it with you guys. This is a little bit scary because this is an online poll. It can crash. But can you please use this QR code? And by the way, we are using this platform, Poll Everywhere. I'm going to tell you a few things about that. They were in the Y Combinator, in one of the first batches in 2008. They are built with Rails. And guess what? They are running on AnyCable Pro. So, let's see. So right now, each one of you, please don't say any curse words there. Each one of you sending a response is connecting to AnyCable Go server, running somewhere on the infrastructure owned by Poll Everywhere. All right, it's a little bit crazy. But it's interesting, Nope is still winning. Tuzla? All right. Well, I'll give it a couple more seconds, and we'll go. Let me check if there is a right answer. Okay, I see it. This is a bit crazy, but this is real-time technology. All right. First of all, I'm relieved nothing crashed. Pineapple? Yeah, it looks a little like pineapple. It looks a little like what? Maybe like a bird. Let's go. 80% of people on my Twitter also didn't know. This is the logo of WebSockets. So WebSocket is the protocol that is relatively new compared to others, and this is the protocol that steered this whole innovation in real-time tech. We're going to be talking about one particular item on this list, and this is AnyCable. AnyCable is a real-time infrastructure built by, co-founded by Vladimir Dementiev, Vova Dementiev, who is the head of backend at Evil Martians, and Irina Nazarova. You can call me Ira. I'm the CEO at Evil Martians. Just a few words about us. If you don't know, we are a distributed team. We have a team in Japan, in Portugal, and here in the States, and in other places as well. And we consult startups. Our customers are products for engineers, startups on Rails, real-time and collaboration-heavy products, and now local-first apps as well. So we do a bunch of things of them, from design to development, scaling, performance, many things. So my vision for our work in open source is this. If you are a startup using Rails and you have a hard problem, you should come to us and have this problem fixed. It can be either with our open source, with our content, or with our services. Either way. And there is a link where we collect all the kind of relevant and the best tools for startups on Rails. And of course, you might know us because of some of our work. I hope so. I'm also running San Francisco Ruby Meetup. I just decided to share this with you. I moved to San Francisco in January, and one of the meetups we hosted at Y Combinator, and this is the partner at YC explaining how Rails played this huge, amazing, huge role in Y Combinator's history. And they still love Rails. So if you're building with Rails, don't hesitate to apply. But we're running monthly meetups. It's amazing. It's an amazing crowd. And just wanted to share this bit with you because it's making me super excited that we have that. Okay, let's start the story. The story begins in 2015. And it begins with Rails. Rails introduces AnyCable, and there are a few frameworks that introduced first-class support for WebSockets, including, of course, Elixir Phoenix, Django and Laravel only this year. And the idea is, well, to be honest, like back in 2015, when you want to build real-time with Ruby, you have a little bit of a problem. So in 2016, Vova brings AnyCable. This is a Go server built as a drop-in replacement for AnyCable. It's open source. It's using the same, for example, the same protocol, and it's also using Redis, just like AnyCable. AnyCable is adding complexity to the system. And originally, it had this setup with 3 components. There is a, by the way, you can now recognize the logo, I guess, I hope. There is a WebSocket server, which is AnyCable Go. There is a Rails component, AnyCable Rails, which is an RPC component. And finally, there is Redis. So it's a lot. But the motto is we build performant WebSockets. And performant, first of all, in terms of memory usage, because WebSocket connections are persistent connections. They are not, HTTP connection. It is giving you the response and it disconnects. WebSocket connection stays alive until somebody wants to break it. That's why memory management is very tricky. Go is a bit better positioned for that. So we got 10 times more memory efficient solution, and also the broadcasting latency of AnyCable is very stable and indeed real time, while AnyCable's latency is quickly becoming seconds. So not really real time. So this was the idea. AnyCable says you can build real-time features in the comfort of your framework. And AnyCable says, you can scale them. One thing was missing. Okay, it was COVID. So during the pandemic, we saw an increase of applications built with real-time features in mind. Why? I mean, because everybody was forced into online. So this is one of our consulting customers from those days and till this day, to be honest. Vito. Vito is built by team who built Tito. And Tito is the platform we all use to buy tickets to tech conferences, t.to, right? So Tito is built with Rails. Vito is also built with Rails. And Vito is an online and community and events platform. Of course, during the pandemic, offline events died out, and that's why this platform made a lot of sense. AnyCable is, so they essentially asked us to help them migrate to AnyCable because they had this kind of huge number of thousands and thousands of users during certain events. They are updating content in real time, and they have chat. So this is all happening through WebSockets. Just remembered some of the other consulting projects that reached out because of AnyCable. This was StackBlitz, one of our beloved consulting customers, online EDE. So we basically were learning a lot from our consulting customers. We were learning about different cases for WebSockets, including GPS coordinates, of course, virtual events, ad tag, collaboration and dev tools. And as a result, we launched AnyCable 1.0. The other learning we had from those days that we didn't expect was this. I try to explain this with the analogy. Anybody remembers dial-up? You again dated yourself. No. Me too, though. So if you remember, when you call your phone, when there was a stationary phone, and normally people use it to make short calls. You call, you get your information, you hang up. But when you're using that phone line to get into the internet, this stays connected for hours, right? So in my case, this is my sister, roughly at that same time. We were addicted to internet, and our grandmom couldn't get through to just kind of call our home because the line was always occupied by this dial-up connection. And this is what I'm trying to say. This is what we saw among our customers scaling WebSockets. The problem was if HTTP requests and WebSockets are serviced and scaled like similarly, basically serviced from one server, then WebSockets always win, and they always win all the resources. And that's why we realized that actually scaling AnyCable independently and making as little as possible to go through Rails is making a lot of sense. Finally, because we had big use cases, we realized that a lot of ecosystem was missing. We wrote this KSX plugin for load testing of WebSockets, which is kind of obvious. Of course, you want to test load test this setup, but it was not exist. It didn't exist before. We built a WebSocket director for scenario-based testing. Also, we learned what people wanted. They wanted GraphQL subscription support. I'm not sure how many people today build with GraphQL. I think it's very, very widespread among bigger companies, but maybe lost popularity among the smaller companies in recent years. But GraphQL subscriptions is actually one of the kind of only clear, at least solutions that promise you real-time updates in a very kind of clear way. Also, people wanted long polling. I'll mention this later, and voice applications. I'll also mention this a bit later. So we thought, let's build. Let's build for those people. And here I want to take a step back and kind of talk to you for a second about like the reasons to build something. And I think there are only a few good reasons to build something and a bunch of the bad reasons. So one good reason is when you build something, you learn a lot, not just about the thing you build, but about people, of course about the technology, but also about people and about the time we live in. And we're going to talk about it. The other good reason is to connect with people, with businesses, with companies, bring value, and earn money as a result of that. This is another good reason. And finally, yeah, you kind of maybe want to change the world. But realistically, I'm going to say, it's not that you can change the world, like turn it around, right, yourself, but you can notice a change that is already happening, and you can help make that change happen. And I think this is very real. This is what everybody can do and should do. And there's a bunch of bad reasons, which come to mind all the time, if you think about them. But what's important is, of course, we see examples of people being successful using one of those reasons, but this is actually very risky. So if you don't have a very honest desire to learn and to connect with people that you build for, then all those other reasons are probably very short-lived, and they will not help you succeed. Because if you cannot succeed quickly, which is very possible, you will not be able to stay in the game. So when you're thinking of building something, I think you should be thinking, I want to stay in the game longer than anybody else, if needed. And that's why I think you should do things you really want. And you might think, okay, Evil Martians, you are inside a company. How do you build a product? We have this scheme. I'll just mention it here, that I came up with, where we can build a product inside Evil Martians, and there is a way to then kind of incorporate, spin off this company, while the authors remain the majority owners. So this already happened with Image Proxy. Image Proxy is now a standalone company built originally inside Evil Martians, and with another startup that was acquired by Playbook. So 2021, we're launching AnyCable Pro, and it had a few important features. You can see these are all features targeting big cases, larger companies or just larger cases. And it includes Apollo GraphQL integration. But I want to say the way we built it was incredibly simple. Why? Because it's just two people. One of them is engineer. Both are working full-time at Evil Martians. So we didn't have too much resources. But I also think it's the right way to kind of not overbuild. So we just used GitHub Container Registry to distribute the Pro. We used flat price. We had a very simple license. We used Typeform for signups for 3 years, and it worked pretty well. Everything else was manual. no licensing servers, nothing. Very, very simple. One question was, how do we know which features are open source and which are pro? We've talked a little bit about that, but I want to show you these nice pictures. So the one on the left is, what do you think it is? Okay, it's, we call it communal garden. Communal garden is a place where everybody can come and take care of a piece of that garden. And I feel open source work in open source is kind of close to that. Communal gardens and public spaces are super important. Imagine if everything is private, there's nowhere to go. You need this garden, this park, a space to kind of freely collaborate. And we need this. But when there's a big company that is wanting to use something you've grown in this communal garden, this company they have a professional farm. And this is how we think about our pro version. Our pro version is similar but different. And different because it's made specifically for large organizations. And it's not just the performance-wise. It's not just about load. It's also about, for example, long polling. Long polling feature is needed for networks behind corporate firewalls where WebSockets are not available. That's why it goes into Pro, because people using long polling are going to be people using corporate networks, probably corporate users of another corporate software. So that's kind of the idea. And also, when you have something related to complicated roles, permissions, audits, this all goes into Pro. All right, this was our first customer. I'm going to say Colbel is a French company that is doing shared inbox. They're doing support through different types of inboxes. So for them, latency is super, super crucial, because they need real kind of chat-like experience, really, really fast latency. Otherwise, customers would feel that support is a little bit sluggish. But what I wanted to say is, I think it's worth it if you have never launched a product and you've never had a first customer. You got to experience this, because it's a very special relationship with your first customers who trust you, although there's nothing kind of behind you. You've just started. And last year, when Rails World was really hard to get to, I got one extra ticket. I gave it to the CTO of Colbel, because this is how I felt about this company. This is how I still feel about this company. Also, you know what? Turns out paying customers are much more engaged and involved. They give you much more feedback, and they give you a ton of support. And on our Pro channel, people support each other. You could say almost better than on open source, in open source. Why? Well, maybe because they're all a bit more invested in the technology. Because they're not just paying with money, they're also made this choice. And it's important for their business. So today, I want to say just a quick look into what AnyCable is today. AnyCable today is a critical infrastructure powering some of the large and amazing Rails companies. Doximity is part of Rails Foundation, running on AnyCable. ClickFunnels, another big marketing Rails company, and a bunch of companies that I kind of cannot mention their names yet, but these are really cool cases in different industries. Legal, we also have more health tech than you can imagine, and transportation cases. But we jumped a little bit ahead. The story is actually not so smooth. So 2021, we launched the Pro. We immediately launched the client because we want support for TypeScript. Any haters? No? Okay. It turns out people want to run AnyCable and Ionic and React Native and all sorts of alternative JS runtimes. So this was the other reason. Then Hotwire comes out, and Hotwire is pushing updates through WebSockets, inspired by Stimulus Reflex and Phoenix Live View. And Hotwire works with AnyCable just as is, as any other action cable functionality. But we wanted something extra. So what we did is we built a special standalone mode for Hotwire. So if you think about this, in the case of Hotwire, the only thing you need from Rails is kind of auth, and we just used token-based auth, and AnyCable is managing everything. AnyCable Go is not going through RPC to Rails to make any commands. So if you're just using Hotwire, you can use this, we call it standalone mode, just AnyCable Go. But at this point, we also use Redis, but later we get rid of it. These are the results of the first 6 months. And we have 6 paying customers, not too many. We have 300K consulting revenue, also kind of, I don't know. So to be honest, what we had to do after 2021, we had to scale down on AnyCable a little bit because it wasn't kind of skyrocketing. 2022, we decided, okay, let's do more marketing. We're not focusing, but we're going to do screencasts. We're going to launch newsletter. By the way, sign up. Sign up for the newsletter. It's a great newsletter. And what else happened at RailsConf 22? Wover made a presentation about the tricky parts of real-time. So it's just his slide. So he's showing how when you lose connection for a second, and then you restore this connection, ActionCable will not deliver the missed comment. So you just missed the comment, and it's until you refresh the page, you will not see it. So what we realized, hey, actually WebSockets are not providing delivery guarantees, and we can fix that. So these are the results of 22. Kind of doubled the customers, but still very few. But we hit 1 million consulting revenue, which was kind of pretty big for Evil Martians. But, so this is consulting revenue from customers who only reached out to help us, to have us help them migrate to AnyCable or build some solutions around it. But it wasn't working. The kind of pure newsletters, screencasts, in our case, weren't working. So in 2023, we are changing the paradigm. Okay, I cannot breathe into this. We decided, first of all, so we did a bunch of things, a bunch of features. And the first one is delivery guarantees. So with AnyCable, you can get exactly once delivery in WebSockets when you're using AnyCable client and AnyCable server, so on both ends, of course. We also, it's a little bit more tricky to understand, but when you deploy your app and you have people connected through WebSockets, I don't know how to explain, but you don't want to break those sessions. It's really important because usually in real life, what happens is you have this sudden influx of people. Suddenly they use WebSockets. Your infrastructure is not scaling enough. And then you have to redeploy because you kind of used all memory. But then you redeploy, and then everybody has to reconnect. And it kills your Rails server. And it's just not where you want to be. So we built resumable sessions. AnyCable automatically resumes all sessions and keeps them alive on redeploys. And this is in Pro. So for now, we recommend AnyCable from day one. So it's not just a performant replacement of Action Cable. It's a reliable replacement. So if you want to make sure that none of those messages are missed, you may want to use it. We also switched from Redis. We got from Redis to this technology NATS. If you haven't seen it, please, I advise you to take a look. It's this amazing kind of connectivity technology for clusters. And we originally had to do this for our deploys on fly.io because they have multi-region deployments, etc. But now we don't have a dependency on Redis anymore, which is cool. This was new, this was unexpected. Somebody just asked us if we could support the protocol for electric vehicles charging stations. Like, what is it? But it's, we supported it, and now we have the largest EV charging provider in Malaysia using AnyCable Pro, and we have the largest UK provider of EV stations testing AnyCable Pro. Currently still in validation stage. So there's something going on there. Twilio media streams. This is a funny thing. I'll explain quickly. Twilio has a WebSocket API. So people can call your number, and this call becomes a voice stream, a WebSocket API. And you can then, usually people want to do speech to text, understand what the person is saying, and then trigger some scenarios on Rails. So AnyCable is doing this, it's kind of proxying all the processing steps when you use AnyCable Go as a library and build a Go application with those additional processing steps. So we open sourced this scaffold for this case, and we wrote a very funny article about Hanami, which I thought nobody's going to pay attention to. But after this, we got so many consulting clients building this for Rails applications and using AnyCable. Finally, LLMs. This is 2023. There's LLM response streaming, and LLMs kind of popularized service-sent events transport for kind of LLM response streaming. So we built AnyCable over SSE, and that's probably the easiest way to use AnyCable today. It's very, very simple. These are the results. Again, on the good side, 1 million consulting revenue. On the other side, we again doubled paying customers of the Pro, but not more than that. So this year, let's go even bigger. We decided, first of all, we are ready to go beyond Rails. And second of all, we're ready for managed service. So we built SDK for serverless JavaScript, and we got a Vercel template. We simplified this setup to only have one component. So if you remember, we had AnyCable as 3 different components: Redis, RPC, and WebSocket server. Now you can use AnyCable as just the WebSocket server. And for the largest use cases, you lose some of the performance, but it's a good balance between complexity and what you get, kind of. So this is a simple deploy, simple to use by any framework. We also introduced whispers. And whispers are something you can use to build this, cursors. This is our all hands meeting. I don't know why people are so crazy, but whispers are messages sent between clients without touching the backend. So usually it's some sort of client state that you want to sync or send client to client. But people kept asking, when is Managed AnyCable finally coming? And we've been holding it off, of course, for a bunch of years. Why? It felt like too much for the amount of resources we had. But finally, this year, we thought, okay, we're doing it. What's the most efficient way? The most efficient way to build a managed service? What do you think? Of course, this is Rails. Yeah. Woo! Thank you. Seriously, we are very, very pragmatic here. If there was something we could use that was more simple and would get us there faster, we'd use it. We are super pragmatic. And we used this stack: SQLite, Flex, Avo, Vite, Action Policy, and we use Fly.io, their API to launch new services. By the way, you can check the gem file of this product. It's pretty cool. So we have an alpha of managed service. It's early. We don't charge for it, but we can test the market. We get responses, we get feedback. Some of that feedback is, by the way, kind of a bit rough, saying, why is it not ready for production? So maybe it means something. Of course, we see how people register, if they try out their Managed AnyCables. We also added something which is important, I want to mention it. We added telemetry to open source. There is an opt-out, so any user can opt out of that. Telemetry is, can I say it, stigmatized in open source? But it's very important. If you think, so at least now we have the relevant metrics that we want to look at. We specifically want to look at the number of unique servers that are big, that have like 1,000 concurrent connections after deploy. And we want to compare open source and pro. And we want to bring the share, we want to bring both of them up and to the right. But also the share of pro in this setting. And at least now we see that the share of pro is actually pretty healthy. So it's not like 1%, it's It's actually pretty good. But I also think if you compare open source and SaaS, SaaS has all the data that you can think of and is maybe abusing it. Open source has no data whatsoever. It's very little, like stars are meaningless. Downloads on Docker Hub, you have no idea, is it like 5 big companies or what? Deploying every 3 seconds for some reason. And I just want to say, I think telemetry and more data sharing in open source is important. But this is maybe a separate topic. Maybe it's a topic for discussion that we have after this about sustainable open source. So these are the results of so far of this year. We have a little uptick in revenue. We also see, so the blue line is new trials. We finally see new trials increasing. So this hopefully means that this is starting to work. So we went from AnyCable on steroids in 2016 to real-time server with delivery guarantees in 2024 and a bunch of new cases. These are kind of cases on the timeline. Again, the big customers that we've already mentioned. And so this all gives us the confidence to move forward. I think what we have is, we know we solve a real problem. We know we can solve it for big cases. And what's interesting, the new cases, the new industries, the new applications keep coming up, like OCPP and streaming in LLMs. We solved the hard backend problems, but there's something missing. And I think the main thing that is missing from AnyCable today is the higher level abstractions and kind of UI-centric real-time. And we have competition like LiveBlocks, etc., that solved, that is kind of solving the problem from that side, from the UI. But our customers sometimes say that, look, we tried those solutions. We know that it's going to be easier for us to use AnyCable because of how it integrates into the framework on the backend. But we'd really love to have a UI kit. We'd really love to have kind of presence as an abstraction, cursors as a kind of React hooks or something like that, or maybe Hotwire something. We still need to simplify a lot, and this is what I'm seeing in many products, and ours is not an exclusion. You can simplify it so much, and you can simplify the usage a lot. So we need more guides, we need zero configuration installs, and yes, another step is just Managed AnyCable for production. LLMs is an interesting trend. I mean, not just LLMs, but in general, now, it's kind of sad, but everybody has somebody to talk to, which is a robot. But you still want to collaborate with this robot. And today, this is chats or Git flow, right? You already have some kind of GitHub Actions robots or something like that. But tomorrow, it's going to be, and of course, voice applications. Maybe tomorrow it's going to be other forms of collaboration, maybe collaborating in the UI. But all of that is kind of amplifying the need for real-time tech. So it's kind of, you could say, a little bittersweet. During pandemic, we wanted to communicate with humans in online, in real time. Today, we want to communicate with robots, but that's better than being lonely, I guess. Yeah, and this means there's going to be wider adoption. Wider adoption means the need for simple solutions, kind of plug-and-play solutions. And finally, of course, transport is going to be changing. There's web transport coming up. There's whatever's the new thing. The idea of AnyCable is, of course, you don't have to worry about it because AnyCable will integrate with it. You just can stick to AnyCable. This was hard. I kind of wanted to think about my own path here. And this is really difficult to reflect on, but very few of you knew me before that. Maybe just one person. And I was just a non-technical manager. I'm a CEO, I'm not writing code, you know. And in a few years, this big change happened, turning me into a co-founder of a developer product, which means contributing to product strategy. This is the main kind of difference. This means we are deciding what's next for AnyCable together. And it brought me closer and it brought me into the Ruby community. Because first I started with our customers that were all Rails companies, and then into promoting things and connecting with people, and this is where I am today, here with you. Yeah, that's probably the best part. Now, I was thinking why it happened and what helped. And I realized sometimes the best way you can influence somebody is by trusting them a lot. And this is what I was super fortunate to get. I got unwavering trust of Vova, Evil Martians, and Ruby community. Thank you, guys. Okay. Almost unwavering. That was except this one case, when he reverted my commits. Thank you.